don't need to explain who Superman is, right? One of the faces of DC Comics, secret identity Clark Kent, superpowers, a ton of them. If you clicked on this video, then I'm sure you don't need any more explanation than that. But you are looking for the answer. What is the best Superman game? It's a surprisingly tough question, but I do have an answer. Now, I said I have an answer, not the answer, because there's no objective choice that will satisfy everyone. And in my case, I have a few caveats. I'm asking, what's the best Superman game? Not the best game featuring Superman. That question would include things like the LEGO DC Superhero series and the Injustice franchise. No, I believe the best answer is a game that strictly stars Superman. Again, there's no objective way to figure that out, but there is a way to aggregate it. I paid a visit to Metacritic and compared all the Superman-centric games. The winner is 2002's Shadow of Apokolips, with a whopping 64 Metascore as of the time of this video. Man, now people are gonna associate Superman and 64 with something bad. But listen, that is an above-average score. If you're just looking for the short answer, there you go. Shadow of Apokolips is the quote-unquote best Superman game. But that's not good enough for me. I want to see if it really makes me feel like the Man of Steel. The good news is that we already have some really clear criteria for that.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Superman!
Shadow of Apokolips is based on Superman the Animated Series, and it really looks like the show copy and pasted onto a video game. But the theme from the original 1940s cartoon gives us our criteria. You just heard them all, so now let's break them down one by one.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
Faster than a speeding bullet speaks to Superman's quickness. The Flash might be called the fastest man alive, but Superman ain't no slouch. Measuring this in Shadow of Apokolips is tricky, since you're not really racing against any other characters. There are no checkpoint rings to fly through like in some other Superman games. Instead, most missions have you racing against the clock to complete a rescue objective. In one level, you have to plug up a dam before it bursts. In another, you have to insert some coolant blocks to stop a nuclear meltdown. These time challenges are necessary, because harming the Man of Steel himself is one of the chief design hurdles of any Superman game. We'll talk about this concept throughout the video, but now's a good time to introduce it. Superman's whole deal is being practically invincible. Unless you've got kryptonite or some other alien energy force to attack him with, you're probably not gonna hurt him all that much, if at all. So to create tension, the developers have to threaten the innocent civilians and the world around him. We don't take much damage, but other people do. So our challenges could come in the form of rescuing civilians from the bad guys or escorting a squad of prison guards during a riot. The classic example, of course, is rescuing Lois Lane, and you will have to do that a handful of times. The speediest example of this involves a cable car rolling toward a break in the track. Now, I can't move on from the speeding bullet point without mentioning the literal speeding bullet ability that Superman has in this game. While you're in the air, you can rocket yourself directly into the enemy for big damage. This is super useful for taking on drones that like to shoot at you from above. Between this ability and the constant timers, we are very quickly shown why Superman has to be faster than a speeding bullet. We'll spend more time talking about flying later, but for now we can move on to...
More powerful than a locomotive.
More powerful than a locomotive is a little vague compared to Superman's other taglines, but I imagine most of us think about super strength for this one. This is quickly apparent even in the game's tutorial, where you have to pick up a bus that's teetering on a bridge. The "I lift things up and put them down" meme definitely applies here. Just about every level requires Supes to hoist up some box or vehicle or other heavy object, then ferry it to another place. This game was released on the PlayStation 2 and Gamecube, so any jank from the early 2000s era only serves to make Superman look even stronger, in my opinion. Whatever you're lifting just sort of snaps into place over his shoulders, making it look appropriately easy for him. Then you have to think about the combat, where we once again run into that problem of Superman being too powerful. 90% of your enemies in this game are Interbots, robots modeled after Intergang, a rogues gallery that Superman has tangled with more than a few times. In this instance, Lex Luthor has replicated their style and armed his robots with technology from Darkseid himself, which is why his home planet Apokolips serves as the name of the game. In the early levels, these weapons do basically nothing against our hero. We can practically walk through the machine gun bullets to beat up these bad guys, sending them flying with super punches or pipes that we've ripped off the walls. That definitely makes me feel more powerful than a locomotive, as the saying goes. As the game moves on, the fights stop being so one-sided. The last few stages see us face off against some B-tier bad guys like Livewire, Parasite, and Kanto.
Just think of me as a friend, Mr. Luthor.
These boss fights are where the game really shines. Sure, you're not flattening your foes with a single punch, but the high-flying duels really do feel like major clashes between two super-powered individuals. I almost wish the game was just a series of one-on-one fights like this, and no, I will not turn this into an Injustice video halfway through. Anyway, if I can use the classic phrase one more time, these boss battles are like two powerful locomotives crashing into each other. It's a great opportunity to use that speeding bullet ability we talked about before. The same goes for Superman's other powers.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
Okay, I'm gonna fudge this one a little bit, but I swear it's for a good reason. Shadow of Apokolips doesn't have a jump button, so I can't really quantify being able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. But it does have some other superpowers that I'd like to talk about. So before we get to the promised flying section, let's cover the others here. Super Breath can both put out fires and push items and enemies back. The firefighting effect is introduced in the tutorial, and then brought back in a clever way in the Parasite boss fight. It's not just a one-on-one duel between two tough dudes who can fly, although that part is pretty fun. You also have to stop every so often and blow out the fire on a truck full of gold that Parasite is trying to steal. Superman can put out fires, but he can also start them. Heat vision is a classic move, and in combat, it serves as a good ranged option. If you don't want to fly over to an enemy, you can hold down the beam to set them on fire, which takes them out of the battle for a bit as they run around trying to put out the flames. Alternatively, you can shoot a quick fireball that's great for taking on flying enemies or stunning Livewire when she's being a real pain in the butt. Lastly, I want to talk about X-ray vision. It's not as flashy as freezing with your breath or firing lasers from your eyes, but it does come in handy when you're trying to find hidden enemies. In one particular mission where you're infiltrating Lex Labs in your Clark Kent disguise, you also have to use it to determine which crates are safe to break open. Some have the batteries you need, and the others have mines that will blow up in your face. I don't want to find out what an exploding mine looks like with X-ray vision, but I will compliment the game for offering variety and some clever uses of Superman's less celebrated powers. Those extra touches make me feel like the hero even when I'm not sucker punching a robot. With that, we can finally move on to...
Look, up in the sky!
You spend the majority of this game up in the sky, or at least you should. Flying is the best way to get around these levels, whether they're outdoors or not, and Superman gets that cool god pose going anytime you hover instead of walking on the ground. Seriously, the slow float is so simple yet so cool. You can take off at any time using the shoulder button, and I have to say, other than the boss battles, this is the best part of the game. Being able to launch into the air with the push of a button is a great feeling, and it's pretty important when you need to zip around to objectives at different altitudes. Flying is where all of your previous powers combine to make you feel properly super. The speeding bullet ability is tied directly into flying, since it turns you into a living missile that hones in on the targeted enemy. Likewise, you can slam down from above with your locomotive power, creating a shockwave that knocks groups of enemies back. From the air, you can also fire off your heat vision like a living turret, something that's used particularly well in the fight against Livewire. Flying has already come up in my other talking points, so you've heard plenty about it by now. Still, I can't stress enough how much of a highlight this is. Taking to the skies anytime you want embodies Superman so well. The controls aren't too wonky when you're up there, and once you get used to them, you can zip around the battlefield with barely a scratch from your enemies. And you get to spam speeding bullets, which, yes, might be a cheap shot, But what am I supposed to do? Not slam into my enemies like a Kryptonian crash test dummy? Making a Superman game is tricky. That's something you need to keep in mind when playing any of them. It's hard to create scenarios that feel like real threats to Kal-El. And then you get these conflicting moments where even if you do take damage, it feels wrong because being indestructible is kind of Superman's whole thing. That's one reason why so many Superman games have low scores. Just one reason. There are others. I'm sure you've seen the weird horizon glitches throughout this whole video. And for as much as I love the final fight against Metallo, it's weird that this game is called Shadow of Apokolips, but Darkseid never actually shows up in any of the real levels. I guess they were hoping for a sequel. Also, don't tell my wife, but there is a serious lack of crypto in this game. But this is a positive channel, so let me bring it back around. Superman Shadow of Apokolips is not a bad game. That Metacritic score is spot on. It's not bad, but it's fine. It's above average. In fact, when compared to other Superman-specific games, some people say it's the best one. It's me. I'm saying that.
Tread carefully. I'll be watching you closely.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what I'm doing here on Framework, please hit that subscribe button in the middle. It would help me out an awful lot if you do. And if you want to check out what I've already cooked up, you can hit that link on the far left. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.